Mrs. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Okay, I want to welcome viewers and guests who are watching live or at a time more convenient for them. We'll get right into seeing no one's participation. We'll go ahead with presentations.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. I'm going to let, this evening we have Todd Schilling, our career-based learning coordinator, coming to speak to the board and the work that he's been doing this year throughout the first semester. So turn it over to Mr. Edwards for a second, just to do maybe a little background introductions.
Absolutely. We had asked Todd to come and give us a little bit of an update on the work that he's been doing in relationship to career-based learning K through 12. Really excited about the work that he's been kind of bringing to our district. And just as a reminder, he's part of the grant that we got last year. So really excited about some of the stuff he's going to talk about today, and things are starting to come together, and have a little bit of sneak preview of our program of studies as well that we'll introduce next month. So I'll turn it over to Todd.
Oh, you should have Todd's slides in your packet as well.
All right, well, good afternoon or good evening at this point. So thanks for having me. So as I've really delved into this role, the work that we're doing here is great, and that the work that Mr. Edwards has laid before I came has really set a great foundation for me to take over and roll with a real purpose. And so when we talk about what the work I'm doing, we have to focus on defining what's next for a student. And we know as educators, and we know as board members, that the students are here to graduate high school. That's our goal, that's our priority, but our real intention should be helping them find their what next. How do we get them to define a purpose and finding where they need to go? And we know through a lot of studies that not every student is meant to go to college. So how do we work with that student to make sure that they are moving into a successful profession, or at least a certificate program that they're going to be able to succeed in life with and have purpose. So there's a study that I really rely on that talks about how for every one professional degree level, master's, doctorate, it takes 2 bachelor level individuals to support that individual, and below that it takes 7 individuals. It takes 7 individuals with a certificate or some sort of certified training to support that, all those people above. And we know that area is where we are really needing the most people to go into. And we know that our students are very driven by some purpose. And so how do we give them more of a purpose? So when we look at what we're doing with the what's next, I'm very much focused on a K-12 approach, because I think a lot of us have always focused on high school, but by the time a student becomes a freshman in high school, they kind of have a direction, or they might not, but it might be too late to influence them enough. So how do we expose a student all the way through their time here at Reading? So from a K-5 perspective, we're kind of designating that the career awareness zone. And so how do we get students just to understand what jobs are out there? There's a great children's book out there by Dr. Kevin Fleming called There's a Hat for That. And students get to read that. And so we're working with the counselors to get that implemented into those grades so that students can hear, especially at that PK kindergarten grade, how can, that there's not just doctors, lawyers, policemen, and firemen out there. There's machinists, there's construction workers. How do they get to expose that? And they really only know, all of our students only know what they know because of either family or what they've seen. They call it the YouTube effect, that they've seen it on YouTube and they think they know all about it. So this year I'm working with our counseling team and our administrators at the K-5 level to do a Touch a Truck event in the spring. We're looking at the week before spring break. So that we are planning for that to be up at Hilltop, and we have gotten some traction on it with support. Officer Hickey has offered to coordinate with the sheriff's office to bring drones out, and I'm really pushing them to see if he can get a helicopter to land too, which would be really cool. But also just helping students see, some of our heavy equipment operators, our fire trucks, our police officers, But not only that, but also we're looking at how do we get a broadcast van out there so that it can see what broadcast, that's part of a truck that has to go out on the road and be part of that. And then additionally, part of that series will also be a career speaker series throughout the week, where we'll have, each student will have a passport and they'll get to pick one of 3 speakers each day from Wednesday to Friday that they can go around and hear from those individuals about their career and how they plan, how they can help students understand it, be part of it, maybe provide some hands-on activities for them. Because we know at that grade level, students are driven by hands-on. If they can touch it and they can play with it, it's cool to them. But as we move into the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we're kind of looking at exploration at that point. How do we get students that have gone through this awareness stage and really look at how do we get them out to see and be part of it? And so one of the events we're going to have during that week in March is a partnership with Junior Achievement to do a game of life where the students in 7th and 8th grade will get a kind of a budget, and they have to go station to station and spend their money wisely and help them understand, you know, and their budget will be based on a profession that they pick. And so they'll have to pay bills and they'll have to provide for, if they decide, hey, you have 2 kids, how does that factor into your budget? And we all know that. I think, you know, like students don't really think about that. And I can tell you when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I didn't know my mom and dad paid the bills, but I just knew they got paid. So helping students realize that's part of life. As well as we're looking at expanding into different career-based field trips. So we currently have done the manufacturing field trips for part of our career readiness day in October. But we also want to expand that to other career fields. And so we're working with the Health Collaborative, as well as the Greater Cincinnati Business Advisory Council and their program, their software, I won't call it software, but their platform called Linked Up, to help coordinate more field trips for our students to go out to. Additionally, with the field trips, we're looking at a partnership with, it's called Adopt a Class. And this program will provide support from the K to kindergarten to 8th grade. And they partner with different organizations throughout our community that come into the building, come into the classrooms, interact with the students about their different careers and just kind of what, not just specific careers, but generalized careers. And then they also have the funding through their organization to help with field trips and actually they have other organizations that put the whole bill so that students can go out and see the Cincinnati Observatory or see the Cincinnati Reds media area. And so helping those students get out to see those things that they normally don't get to see or may not even know exist out there. The other thing that we're implementing in the 8th grade, and I'll get into it as well as with the 10th grade, is U Science. So U Science is a career aptitude assessment tool that we are looking at, that we purchased through some career awareness funds that we have available to us that help students realize what they're truly good at. I think we all can remember the career assessments that we took in high school or in elementary that said, you know, you answered, I like doing this, I don't like doing that. And at the end of it, you know, mine said you're going to be a carpenter. And I was like, that's not what I want to do. So was it accurate? Absolutely not. So what this assessment does is it's 9 for the 8th grade, it's 6 brain games, and for the 10th grade, it's 9. And they're really brain games. And I will tell you that we don't have the students do it in one sitting. I did it in one sitting for the high school level when I first did this about 4 or 5 years ago when I became aware of the product, and my brain hurt after taking it. It's looking at sequencing the numbers or looking at a picture and seeing what you see in that picture. And then after they take those brain games, they take a career interest survey, and the algorithm behind the scenes puts it all together based off what their natural skills and ability are, their aptitudes and their interests, and says, here are the top careers that you, based on your aptitudes and your interests, you fit in. And they're not generic careers, they're very specific, biomedical engineer or pilot or something very specific to them. They can sort those by, they can sort them by their interests only, by their aptitudes only. And then when they click into those careers, they can see a very very extensive information about those specific careers, going from the job description, the day-to-day operations of what that position is, to what the career forecast is for that position and by state. And so you can hover over a map of the whole United States and it'll tell you that in Ohio, this job in the next 10 years is going to grow by 10%. And so, it also helps a student who might have I'm trying to think of the term for a marine biologist, sorry. Marine biologist in Ohio, that's not going to be a popular career. It may be up near the lakes, it might be, but they're helping a student realize that that's their true passion and their desire. They're going to have to relocate. And so on the flip side of the assessment, once they take that on our end, from the administrative side, we get to see a lot of the data. And so currently we've implemented this in our 8th grade career exploration course. The students, so we have the first group of students that have taken the course, took the assessment in the last couple of weeks. The second group will take it next semester when they start the career course. We weren't able to implement at the beginning of the semester just because of when we purchased it. But what we can see here, and you can see it probably better in your packets, but the blue indicates aptitude and the yellow indicates interest. And so where we see high levels of interest and low levels of aptitude, there's a gap and vice versa. And so how do we as a district help students in closing those gaps for them? And so if you look for arts and audio video, there's a high level of interest and a low level of aptitude. What can we start doing within the district to help support and grow those skills for students? And then as well as for high level of, these are always interesting to me, but manufacturing is of course a high level of aptitude and low level interest. So how do we grow that? And with our makerspace we're going to be putting in, I think that will help grow that area. But the other interesting one is agriculture. I got a good chuckle at it, but there is programs out there for urban agriculture. And how do we start integrating some of that into play so that students can be part of that? We have a garden now here in the elementary. How do we get students to be part of that and grow items? And so this will help us allow us to see what this next couple of years look like is building our curriculum and building the opportunities for students to help close those gaps. So as we move on to what we're doing as with other work that I've been working on. So you all have the little pathways booklet we have here. I will tell you this is in draft mode. There I kind of narrowed it while we're sitting here. But we have a matrix that that Mr. Edwards put together. And as we start looking at how we get students' interests, the pathways that we kind of put together now are a menu for students to take a look at and see what these options are. And so there's 4 different pathways that students can choose from. There is the workforce, which would be a direct entry into the workforce from post high school. There's the 2-year for a student who's going to plan on attending the 2-year institution, a 4-year, going to our traditional 4-year college. And then there's a high school associate pathway. And so we do have some of those high achieving students that want to achieve an associate's degree here in high school. So how do we support that through the College Credit Plus program? This isn't for every student. And part of when we roll this out to students and parents is going to be a discussion that this is, if you're choosing that pathway, it's a commitment. And then you're going to have to work with our counselors and the different college staffs to make sure you're meeting the goals and needs there. But really the goal with this is to help students pick a pathway coming out of the 8th grade, going into their freshman year with the tool use science. But what we know also is that I heard it from parents already. It's like you're locking a student in, and it's not that. This isn't college. This is pivotable. It's changeable. So a lot of these pathways overlap, and so we know that a student who might start in the business pathway and get into after freshman year and be like, I want to change healthcare. Well, that's fine. There's a lot of those courses are in the same pathway. It's just the more career specific courses that you're going to take, and so. This really goes to the need of answering the why. Why are we doing this? This is to prepare students for that what's next. And so if a student can leave us with credentials, that's great. If a student's leaving us with a clear path to a 2-year school, fantastic. We have set them up for that. And that's part of what this pathway also does, is lays out what those credentials they can earn in this pathway is, as well as what the jobs are that are out there. And it's not a holistic list of the jobs, and the salaries are average, based off Ohio averages. But it gives parents, it gives students that ability to see that in a snapshot versus having to do that research on their own, having to go out and try to figure out what classes they need to take. This gives them kind of that direction that they need to go down. And so, as we look into building these pathways, it also leads to expanding opportunities. And so as we've grown the opportunities this year, I will say that we've expanded the number of staff trainings that we've provided so far. We've had 2 instructors, high school instructors and middle school instructors becoming certified in Stop the Bleed. So we offer that credential to our students, as well as first aid and CPR. We also have another staff member who is offering the FEMA National Incident Management credentials. And so students are able to take that credential through the class. It's all online, but the instructor goes through the material, helps them understand it, and then they go out and take a test for that to achieve the credential. The other credentials we're offering this year, we have the Microsoft credential and Mr. Sharp's class. In his business applications class, and I want to say we had close to 20 students, maybe about 15 students. I have to look at the numbers again for this semester that completed credentials for their Microsoft program. So we had 1 student who did complete all 3, which was Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, and so they get a certificate for a Microsoft specialist. But the others have gotten at least Word or Excel or PowerPoint, one or the other. So they are getting that credential to become certified in those platforms. We are also looking and then going to be offering Lean Six Sigma. So it'll be a 3-part process of leadership excellence, the yellow belt and green belt and yellow belt. And so that training will occur for our staff members in the spring. And so by next fall, we'll be able to offer all those credentials to our students. One of the other partnerships that we have is a partnership with Talbot House to provide students the opportunity to do some training for quality mental health. And I have invited Stephanie Bro here, who has been our lead here on campus offering the program to our students. I do want to invite her up just quickly to provide some updates of what she is with that program and how the students have done this semester. So turn over here for a second.
How's everybody? Excuse me.
Good.
So my name is Stephanie Brown. I am the school navigator for the Insight School to Work program through Talbot House. This program really kind of zones and hones into the lack of behavioral health workers. So in 2021, there was a statistic released that about 50% of youth that need behavioral health or mental health services don't have access to it. For 1, lack of workers, and 2, stigma. So this program works to kind of close that gap with the stigma. So we range from sophomore, junior to senior. So with the sophomores, we're focusing on reducing that stigma and bias. And then when it comes to juniors and seniors, we're focusing on that workforce. Okay, so this program gives juniors and seniors a pathway to the workforce in behavioral health. We really want to show the wide range of careers that fall underneath that umbrella. Most people, when they hear behavioral health, they just think psychologist, psychiatrist, therapy. There's a whole lot of different careers that fall under that. Some of the students have shown interest in psychiatric nursing. Some of the students have shown interest in criminal justice, like forensic psychology, things like that. So this program really shows the different career paths that you can take under that behavioral health umbrella. And we are also working to close the gaps, the financial gaps. So this program, the students, juniors and seniors, they get paid for completing these hours for doing the curriculum. They get paid $13 an hour during the school day when they meet with me. Our juniors are getting the mental health first aid certification. They get that also during the school year. So they will leave junior year with the certification. And then our seniors are getting the QBHS certification. So Qualified Behavioral Health Specialist. That means that they can go straight into a case manager role. Right into the workforce right out of high school. Okay, so with those two certifications, we are also offering scholarship opportunities with this program. So this program has partnered with Cincinnati State. Now, that's not the only school that they can go to. But we just came out with our final numbers today, so yeah. So we are able to award seniors a scholarship of $12,500 that covers a whole 2-year program that's at Cincinnati State. So, and there at this point, 10 available scholarships for that amount. Now, if we have students that want to go straight to the workforce and want to do a healthcare provider certification, they have an opportunity for a $4,000 scholarship, which covers the certifications that fall underneath that umbrella. Now, let's say they want to just go straight into the workforce with just the certifications that they get in school. We are giving them an allowance for clothes. So they will get $250 so that they can buy professional attire to go into the work field. For just completing the 2 certifications, they get cash bonuses. They can do whatever they want with those cash bonuses. For completing the mental health first aid, they get a $250 cash bonus. For completing the QBHS, they get another $250 cash bonus. So this year, our seniors will be completing both. Since this is our pilot year, you guys are one of our pilot schools. So if they complete both, they will get $500 cash bonus, and they will get paid for all the hours that they did while training. So that is 8 hours for mental health first aid and 40 hours for the QBHS. Okay, so a lot of this will take place during the school day for the juniors. This year, the mental health first aid is virtual, and we have 17 students signed up to take it. So that is both juniors and seniors. The program altogether right now has 21 students. So they have completed their first semester. So our seniors are off and running with the QBHS curriculum. They are on module 2 out of 8. So they will finish that up next semester. And our juniors will complete the mental health first aid in February. So along with that, we are doing a lot of career education. So we're showing them the importance of behavioral health. And even if they don't go into the behavioral health field, how this knowledge can help them in other fields like HR, marketing, right? Anywhere that you're dealing with people. Okay. So we're showing them the benefits of having behavioral health background and behavioral health knowledge. Hopefully they will pursue that, but if not, they walk away with knowledge, right? So that is the program. That's what we're doing right now. The progress has been great. They had a first semester project. Our seniors did a career vision board, and our juniors did a peer education project. They were really, really cool. A lot of the poster boards, the vision boards, were behavioral health related. If they were not, like 2 of them were ultrasound technician. And so they were tasked with connecting to behavioral health, and they did a great job doing that. And then there were also some like economy psychologists and things like that. So showing them the different types of jobs that can really go into it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
This program has been great. We had such a great response, students signing up. And we look at continuing that with our sophomore students, pushing it to them in the spring. And then having those students continue on for next year. And so, I mean, when we sat and talked about this a while back, it was really cool when I thought, gosh, I would have loved to get paid to go to school. It would have been really great. But I think where we are seeing the students are actually really engaged and excited about it. And you even had a student do art or dance therapy as one of their presentations. Never knew that was a thing, but dance therapy is a thing. So I think we all feel a little better when we do a little dance sometimes. But as we continue to grow our programs, we know that the opportunities for students is going to keep growing. We have a lot of company interest to be part of what we're doing here, as well as through the Greater Business Advisory Council at Cincinnati, through the Hamilton County SC. We know that there is a large amount of commitment from our partners across the tri-state that want to see students going into trades, going into their workforce, and we have employers that are willing and committed to growing their workforce once they get students in their door. How do we just keep you here and train them? So as I said, I'm very appreciative to be here and be part of the Reading community. I know we made some really leaps and bounds this semester, and we're going to continue to do that. And I appreciate the support that Dr. Davis and Mr. Edwards provide me on a daily basis. And as we keep growing these pathways, I'm excited for these. These are near completion. They are, I shared with Jen, that they very much have been my labor of love the past couple of weeks of getting them done. But it's really, I think, going to provide students with that holistic picture of what their pathway looks like. So I'll open up to any questions or thoughts. And like I said, this is in draft mode, so we didn't put foreign language on there, so we got to go back and add foreign language in. But we are going to keep growing these. I think pathways that help the associates in high school are going to be very unique in the very smaller numbers, because those are very intensive process. And so some of the programs may not have those initially, because a lot of the courses are offered only on college campus, and so transportation becomes a little bit of a barrier. So how do we provide, but we'll make sure that the students, like, I want to get associates in healthcare. How do we support that? We're gonna work with that student on a basis. So, but I just want to express my thanks to all of you as well.
So are there prerequisites before they can take these courses, or are there any do they have to sign saying that they're gonna do it for the whole year? I mean, or is it just?
So the conversation, we been working with the counselors on this a lot too. We're getting ready to go into scheduling here in the spring. And so it's not a commitment. It's not saying you're locked in. It's very much that the student is picking a pathway, and they're going to start that as a freshman. And all of our students are going to have that option to pick it. But looking at the continuum, if they pick it as a freshman and they want to change sophomore year, it's totally fine. And we can pivot and change that to whatever pathway they want to go down.
Is there, because they're getting paid, is there a limit of how many students that can be in a class? Mm-hmm.
So for the Insight program, it's grant funded. And so we have an allotment of how much they get paid, right? Sure. So we have target numbers. We do have preschools right now. So it's only offered at Reading, Deer Park, and Wentworth. So as of right now, we're under our numbers. So we are planning, the sophomores are ongoing enrollment. And juniors, we are taking a second segment for second semester.
Okay.
But we do have target numbers.
Okay. All right.
If a student doesn't sign up like at the beginning of the program, would they still be able to do it for like 1 year, like senior year, if their schedule allows or something like that?
Yes,
Okay.
so they can enroll as a sophomore, junior, or a senior. So they don't have to have the prereqs.
Okay.
They can
Okay.
enroll.
I think it's great that they would be exposed to, the discussions about behavioral health, even if their schedule may prevent them 1 year or another, at least give them some exposure.
And what we've been intentional with, what Todd is building out, we've actually built those courses for next year into a pathway. So for healthcare example, we're building that into the healthcare pathway, so the students can see that from a longitudinal perspective of, hey, I want to get in healthcare, I should start thinking about these classes now.
Talbot House has applied to the state for credentialing for the credential that students earn. It's not right now an industry recognized credential, but they applied to the state, and we are supporting them in that, because the student should absolutely get credit for that.
I'm gonna speak for myself, obviously, but how nice is this that we're not having conversations about study halls? These kids are actually, our students are doing things that are meaningful, and we're not having a student have 3 study halls. This is exciting.
And I will tell you, I spoke with Jen Leon, this afternoon. We were working out the second semester schedule and our seniors, most of our seniors are on early release. And so that's when it fit on their schedule, is to go in the seventh bell. Where Jen was a little worried, like, will they stay? And actually all of them didn't even put up a fuss. They were excited to stay. So I was like, we're making progress.
It's
Wow.
exciting.
It's great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, very
Thank you
good.
for coming.
I just want to say also thank you, Stephanie, thank you, Todd, and thank you to Mark for, I know how hard that they're working on this and that trying to work on with the teachers and students and providing opportunities. And yesterday I had an opportunity I'm part of a small committee for the Department of Education and Workforce. And we had a meeting yesterday, and Director Dakin, who is now, he reports directly to Governor DeWine, was he and his team were at the meeting. And so it was a great meeting, 2 hours of just a small group like this and him listening to superintendents and hearing their feedback. And that goes directly to the governor. And Director Dakin was here in March when we launched and announced the grant that we were awarded. But one of the things that he said yesterday is this year there's 136,000 freshmen in Ohio. And 69% of those students 6 to 8 years from now will not have a 2 or a 4-year degree. And employers are the shift is becoming more focused on the skills, credentials, because credentials are what employers say kids need. And so those skills are so important, because if you have 136,000 kids this year, that's 95,000 kids not going to college. So what are they going into? And that's what we're trying to really capture. And I felt really good. And I told Mark this yesterday that the state of Ohio really wants schools, because you're required to have a graduation plan. They want a career plan for students, and they want that to start in 7th and 8th grade with kids. And I feel like this is the work that we're already doing for our students, that they have a pathway, that they have a goal, that they can see how that leads towards something. And Todd really keyed that phrase that resonated in my mind, your what's next, because it is about, we want every graduation should just be part of the process. Everybody needs to graduate, but what's your next? What are you working toward? What do you want to do? And our job is to help navigate that. And I told Director Dakin yesterday that Reading is very similar. We are about 65% that aren't planning on going to a post-secondary school. So our students need the skills, the credentials, and they need the awareness of what they're going to be focused on. So it was good. I felt like it aligned very well to the work that Todd's doing and Stephanie, and both of them, this being their first year here at Reading, getting to know the kids and understand how Reading works. They've just done a phenomenal job. So thank you.
And one more thing just to add, that I really appreciate what Todd has done with these pathways is when you look and you're going to see all the pathways, every single one ends in a work-based learning experience. So our goal is for every single student to have some sort of work-based learning experience. We're fortunate to have Stephanie in behavioral health, but we have inclusive tutors for education pathway. We have 3 students who are starting next semester are going to be doing a paid internship in-house in IT. And doing some IT stuff here. So really putting not only just the knowledge and the theoretical aspect about this, but the practical experiences that Todd is lacing together has just been really, really good. So we're really excited about that. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on to board committee updates, buildings and grounds. I have no updates. Finance,
Nothing.
policy. We have nothing. And all of those dates for next year will be discussed at our organizational meeting in January. Great Oaks.
Yes, at each one of your seats, you've got the board highlights from our Great Oaks meeting last week. And Beth, you have the student spotlight. There was no Reading students in there this week, but maybe next. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. For discussion items, A to Z checklist.
Thank you, Mrs. Warnery. Each year, I just want to share a little bit that the Board of Education has provided a tool for self-evaluation that comes out from the Ohio School Board Association. And this is something that it allows us and allows the board to use this throughout the year, and it helps them take specific steps or action steps so that they can meet district goals. And for the last 13 years, the Board of Education has received the gold level, which means that 23 out of 26 criteria have been successfully met. And I think that's a great example of the governance of the board, the work of the board, and all that you do. So this evening, the assessment has been completed. It's on the agenda for the board to approve tonight. Then it will be mailed to OSBA, and we should know if we're awarded the gold recognition again in the spring. So we'll find out again. So just want to thank the board for all their work and the excellence, and it'll be exciting to see where that goes for the spring.
Thank you.
I'll pass this down, because we'll have to have all the board members sign this. This is for them, for us to submit the A to Z checklist.
Thank you. Do we have to wait till we approve it, or is it already done? or-
Maybe, yeah,
Okay.
Should I not?
yeah, maybe wait until we do the official act.
Sorry. Okay, continuation of our discussion from last meeting on the board meeting dates.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Warnery. So on the December 8th board meeting, we began to talk about the organizational meeting and setting the dates for the 2025 calendar. And after that meeting, some of the board members requested some additional information during our board meeting, and we shared that with the board. I want to thank Mrs. Burke for working on that, and I think that went out on Friday the 10th so that board members could review that. And so this evening, we're just revisiting that topic, and it's open for any discussion.
First off, thank you, Mrs. Burke, for getting all that information together. I appreciate that. And then there's an extra sheet there that I went through all the minutes since Dr. Davis has been the superintendent. And it just shows when we've adjourned every board meeting. That way, I thought maybe that might help with a little, because the last meeting I had gone through the minutes, and Mrs. Burke is so thorough in her minutes that sometimes they look, but it didn't really show how long the meetings were. So I went through and a couple things that went along with that. I know that I don't think any of us care to have the special board meetings because it's another meeting. And so I did go back, and historically, before Dr. Davis took over, we've had years of 10 special board meetings, 8 special board meetings. One of those during COVID, so understandably so. And then the other one, the one 8, I believe, is a lot of construction, having to hit deadlines and things like that. But we also 5, 6, 3 was kind of the average of special board meetings since Dr. Davis has taken over. We've had this year we've had 0. 2023, we had 2 of those, and those were in months when we only had 1 meeting. So I think that kind of was in place of possibly a meeting. And then in 2022, we only had 1. So again, I think that it's the organizational, the structure that Dr. Davis has put in place, that when we do have meetings, they're meaningful. And things do come up that we have to have special meeting, and those things do happen. However, just by looking at we were going from an average of 5 or 6 a year to now 1 or 2. And so again, I just thought that was kind of information that I would just want to share with everybody that I was able to pull together.
What is W?
Work session,
Okay.
and then the business meeting.
I kind of looked through some of that information, and one of the things that I was trying to pinpoint is additional cost. So what I did was I took just an average guesstimation on what the mean would be, adding the salaries up and figuring out what the hourly rate was, which I didn't go into a whole lot of detail. I just picked a number. And based on a lot of the times, each board meeting that they have to deal with costs about $2,000 extra. And I was kind of surprised when you start putting dollars and cents, that could have been time spent, in my opinion, on maybe other things. And that was based on the information that you sent on how much time you guys have to spend prepping for a board meeting. I was just kind of curious to see.
Are we talking about like only having one meeting, or are we talking about having 2 meetings one time per month?
Just one meeting, I think,
Okay,
and
so it's still the same.
no,
No, it's two.
We're talking about one date, 2
One
meetings,
date,
one
two-
date, one
okay.
prep date.
Okay, gotcha. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't, but I thought it was 2 in one night, but I wasn't.
It
sure.
is 2 in one
It is
night,
2,
but
okay.
it'd be a 5:30
amount-
to 6:30, 6:30 to
Okay.
whatever, right?
But the amount of times that they prepare.
Yeah.
Is what is being discussed, right?
yeah,
For
that's,
2 separate times.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 separate dates.
I went through, and I'm looking at my phone because that's where I have it. I'll forget what it's called. And the good news is there's a lot of, time that can be saved since you guys are so organized and you can plan in advance for the agenda, regardless of when we decide to have our meetings. The 3 meetings that you have that take an hour each, you could do those monthly, and plan both meetings in one meeting. And set the agenda for both meetings. And that takes 1 meeting off of all of your lists. Another thing is, the board update recap. It looks like that's pretty extensive, but I'm thinking that's sort of a duplication from you typing up the minutes, and I'm wondering if we couldn't use AI to summarize that. And then just use that summary to send out instead of like, redoing what's already been done. To save time. And then I looked in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things on there are all things that are gonna have to be done the same amount of time regardless of when we have a meeting. The board meeting duration is just gonna happen on a different day, it's, and the committee meetings are still gonna happen. Like there's no time lost, there's no time saved. It's basically those planning meetings that take up a lot of your time, and that's an hour each. And another question I have is REA, are there always issues that need to be discussed with REA, like every board meeting?
Can I address this? So when those started, I happened to be president of the union at the time. And because what was happening is the president of REA would come to every single board meeting. And to eliminate that from them having to do that, the superintendent and treasurer would meet with them prior to the meeting and just say, this is what we're doing tonight. So it is important for them to have those discussions.
Well, I was just trying to.
Okay, I just wanted to explain like the history behind those.
Okay, no, I just
Because
was
we
trying
used
to
to,
see, is
we
there
used to have to come to
always-
every one of the board meetings as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just thinking,
Sure.
if they look at the agenda and they don't have any concerns about anything, is it an hour? Is it an hour necessary to block off for them to sit and discuss an agenda that they may or may not have any interest in? You know what I'm saying? There may not be any contracts up, or there may not be any issues that they want to discuss. So I don't know, I don't want you guys to be having meetings just to discuss meetings and just to have a meeting, like, there's no point. That's my pet peeve, is having meetings to discuss meetings. But, yeah, I would say the biggest recommendation would be at the beginning of the month to have a planning meeting for the entire month, regardless of when the board meetings happen, but sit down with REA, with Beth and with, Kim, set the agenda for both meetings. That frees up an hour for each of you.
We kind of did that this month with the organizational meeting because most of us will be out next week, so
Mm-hmm.
we looked at both tonight's meeting and then the organizational meeting. We did do that this month.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the ones at the bottom are things that really
I don't
can't,
remember
the
what they
top,
were.
it's, let's see, minutes. There are things that we really can't save any time, because if we have a meeting that's twice as long, you're gonna spend twice as long typing the minutes, you know what I mean? After that one meeting, instead of just having it twice, and half of the time. The other stuff, the prepare agenda, that wasn't as much, I was looking more for what to free up you guys. So yeah, I mean, really, the only area that I saw was all the meetings, the planned meeting. That can be monthly if you got, I mean, you guys, it seems like are organized enough to do that. So if everybody is okay with that, I don't know if there's any restrictions about doing that monthly. Every other week.
I think that's just how you three feel about doing it or
Mhm.
not doing it, or however you've been doing it.
Yeah.
Were you able to find out about, if we set the calendar, if we can go back and change the calendar?
He's been on vacation. Ryan has, and that's who we had sent it to, so he hasn't answered me yet.
Okay.
Yeah. My instinct is that we could, you know, we would be able to do that, but I don't want to give that as a certain answer without legal advice.
I mean, we cancel and add meetings. So
I'm sorry.
we cancel and add meetings as we go. So
Yes,
I think there's a way to do it. The question will be, what is the way?
yeah, and I mean, like, like.
I mean, we add a meeting as a special meeting, you
so
can only talk
you-
about one topic.
Like when you're setting a regular meeting, it's just 24 hours notice. The
Yeah,
the
you can
problem is
still-
when you call the special meeting, then you have to give each board member a 2-day notice. You have to cite the reason why you're meeting, and you can only discuss that reason that you cited, and then the board members could then waive and say, okay, well, I'll do it in one day, you know, if we needed to meet that quick. But for any other meeting of the year, we just have to give a notice of 24 hours and then change what's online and that. So that's why I do believe, to your point, Alicia, that we could change them at any given time, but I will double check. I mean, I've already tried, but it just is out, so.
I'm willing to give it a try if we want to do like the first couple months and see how it goes. If we're not stuck to it the whole year, but without knowing if we actually can do that, since in January, we're supposed to set the dates for the whole year. And I understand sometimes we cancel them and move them around, but I don't know about canceling and changing a whole year. I just don't know how, if that's okay to do or not. And that's why I kind of went back to the adjourn things. If you look at the work sessions, we've never gotten out of here before 6:30 on any work session.
And that's, I mean, it's starting at 5:30.
And that's
too.
starting, right, that's starting at 5:30, and it just is a little concerning to me that if we have a work session and then we're gonna stop to go on to I don't know how that would work. I don't know if we can move things to the other one, because then are they at the same meeting? And then the time is just very concerning to me, and that's, again, I mean, most of them went past, like, a lot of them went 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock on just the work session nights. And I guess my other concern would be is if we're talking about a topic and then we go into the work session, normally we have the 2 weeks between them to kind of think it through. And if we have questions, because are we going to be expected then to vote right away after we just talked about something in a work session? Those are just a couple of my concerns.
The alternative is wait another month.
Wait, and then we would have to wait another month. And I don't. But again, I go back to the fact that you guys have streamlined our board meetings and made them meaningful. We used to have, instead of work sessions and board meetings, when Alicia and I first got on there, they were they were business meetings every single, it was a board meeting every 2 weeks. And I mean, you guys have done a phenomenal job of making them work sessions. And then I'm concerned about when we have character awards and stuff, that's going to take our whole work session. So we won't get anything done that month. And so we'll go right into it and it go right into a board meeting. And that's why when we were looking at the different schools and stuff, Jen and I were texting each other with the schools and how many they were doing and everything. There, some of them, it was every other month they would do that, or they would look at like what Jen put together, like the things like lengthier months or whatever, that those would actually have two separate. So it's not every single month that you would have, like in the summertime, we need one meeting. We don't need two meetings. To look at those and pick the days, the months that we really truly only need one night to have a work session in it.
I looked at the schools as well, the ones that do monthly meetings, and I've been on vacation, so full disclosure. I watched a couple of them just to see what a monthly meeting would look like, and are they scrambling and like trying to play catch up or whatever. They either had a really long meeting or they talked about nothing. Honestly, it was like a quick, like, let's get out of here, hour and a half, let's plow through everything. Or they were there forever and that was like a 4-hour meeting, so there was no in between. And my concern about us is we're doing a good job right now with the presentations and everything. I feel like it's not that we would intend to, but if we know we are on a schedule and we would trim back. I just think it's just human nature. We would cut back because we are under time constraints.
Just a quick question, Beth, on these times. And I don't know if you got into this or even cared about it, but I do know that a lot of times when we get out late is we have a very lengthy executive session.
Yes, and I did look at that. However, again, we're starting at 5:30, and if you look at these at the board meetings, it's at least 7:30, and that's on a regular month. The 9 o'clock ones, those 9:17, that's like, those are executive session ones. Those are longer ones. But normal times during a regular board meeting, if you look, it's at least 7 o'clock that we're getting out of here. So then you're gonna add another hour to that because we're not gonna start till 6:30 instead of 5:30. So it'll be 8 or 9 o'clock every time we have a meeting. Which also puts you guys here for like a 14-hour day. That's a really long.
But only one day.
Yeah, they have to come here
Yeah,
twice and wait in
exactly.
between.
I'm sorry.
I said, yeah, that's one of the things to consider is they come twice, obviously, and wait before it starts. Now, I know you guys are
Yeah.
sticking around doing stuff anyway, but. Basically they have to block off 2 full evenings
Right.
of things to do.
Well, we all work full-time jobs. We all are doing the same thing. They're long days for all, and yes, but they will be long days for all of us. And I just think we need to get past that part of it. And the board needs to do our job. And I'm just concerned if we're cut to an hour for a work session, that we will not be doing our job as diligently as we are now. And it just concerns me. Perception is reality. But I'm happy to try, like, if we want to start the first 3 months and see how it goes.
I think we should. I mean.
But I did my concern, I would be happy to do that as long as I know we need to hear from our attorney that we can change it if we have to.
I mean, I can call there again tomorrow.
If it's
and
not
see
your
if
fault
one of
because he's
the other
on
attorneys-
vacation,
I
yeah.
can talk to one of the other attorneys.
Yeah, maybe Aaron.
So somebody answer me the question, because we've had so much discussion and went in so many directions. What exactly are we trying to do here? Are we, number one, keeping 2 work sessions, a work session and a business section
Yes,
per month? Or are we looking at 1 day, 2 meetings? I mean,
that was the proposal.
From what I understand is our work session would start at 5:30. It would go until 6:30 or whenever we end. Most of them end before the hour anyways. And then the next one starts at 6:30. So we'd have two meetings that day
One
instead
date.
of, yeah,
One
instead of
date.
2 Wednesdays would be 1 Wednesday.
I just,
And there has to be a 15-minute gap between them.
There does need to
Oh,
be.
there has to be.
Yes,
I didn't realize that, okay.
yes, to be considered two separate meetings.
So have all of our work session as the first one? Have all of our work sessions been under 45 minutes?
Well, what, two
No, but I'm
have
sure
last 16 minutes.
I'm sure they'll have to tailor the agenda to know which items though are on the work session, agenda. To make sure it's gonna meet that time and
Well,
then
those are the presentations, those are the character awards. Those
so
are-
far, but we're talking about in the future. I'm sure they wouldn't make it go over 45 minutes if it can't. I think if we did it, we're trusting them to prepare the agenda in a time, in a timely fashion. That's it. We're just trusting our administrators who are the ones bringing the idea to us. To make the agenda, if it's a character meeting day or if it's a character awards day, we can't have it also be a 5-year forecast day. Or whatever else is on the agenda. And if it's a character meeting day, then maybe something needs to be on the business portion of the agenda that would maybe otherwise be on a work session, but we don't have anything that keeps us from doing that now. We put items on our work session, versus our business all the time.
But we can only vote in the
No,
board meeting, right?
No.
Or I mean, which
No.
one is it? The board?
You can vote
meeting?
either
There's
time, but
those.
we have made it,
Only one.
we have
Yeah.
made it practice now that we don't vote on a work session night unless it's absolutely necessary.
we do. We do though. Do we really have very many work sessions where we don't vote on anything? We've always had to add things.
Yeah, we try to
We
keep it.
tried to keep it light. That's what
Yeah.
we've always said, but we do vote at them.
yes, and it's,
There's no
the work
restrictions.
session was always set up for more discussion
Correct.
and understanding of the issue so that we could make better decisions when we voted on it in the business. Or if it was an emergency or not an emergency, but something that we were under a timeline. Then after the discussion, then we would vote on it based on when we had to do it. But one of the things that you sent, Jen, I thought was a kind of a metrics for each month.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the items,
More convenient help.
well, the point being is that if you lay that
Then
out the way
months.
that you guys have done that, you should be able, I say that tongue in cheek because sometimes when I look at stuff, it's much more complicated. But if you look at the things that have to be done and on the finance world that there's certain reports that have to be given to the state that we have to review before you okay it and send it. Those dates, and I'm sure there's other items. But when you have, like somebody said, the finance report, you keep everything else off that particular agenda because we know that could turn out to be a long talked item or issue. So by you going through and kind of documenting everything that has to happen every month, after a while, you're gonna start getting the flavor or the flow of what we can put here and what we can't. So, I mean,
Well, that's where I think they have already been great organizers of our meetings. That's why I think they are more efficient. Is because
Yes.
they look ahead and they know this is a heavier, this is a more busy, this is a less busy. This is where we like to stick our presentations or which presentation, not every
When.
presentation has to be right now either. I feel like we do things very far in advance. Or like I said, the things that used to pop up, like approving, trips that we didn't know about till last minute or after the fact. Doesn't typically happen anymore.
Right.
We know about them so far in advance to where they can plan that.
if there's any time that you need or any questions, you can get to them and
Right.
have it taken care of.
Right.
Before.
The reason that I am concerned that it won't work long-term, and I'm happy to try it, everybody wants to try it, and it's legally allowed, is if we have, one, I'm concerned about getting information and having to vote on it the same night, because I mull over things and I come up with questions later, and that kind of prevents that opportunity, and I like to research or whatever, I like to have that time, but and then if we weren't to do that, then it would be the next month, which is not okay either. But if we're tailoring an agenda to keep it under 45 minutes, the alternative is it goes on next month, so then I just feel like we're eventually gonna get to the point where we're bogged down, where we have stuff that's last month's that had to go in this month and so forth, but I mean, like I said, I'm happy to try it. I personally don't think it will help much, because just looking at the amount of time, it's the planning that's the time, but as long as we still have the same amount of business to cover, I don't think that that's the solution is just holding it all in one night versus splitting it in two. It's still the same meeting, it's still the same number of items we're gonna discuss, it's still, an agenda has to be created, minutes have to be typed, like there's certain things that aren't gonna be, you can't undo, or you're not gonna not do them. So I just personally don't think it's gonna work well, but I don't also think it's gonna help much. That's just my 2 cents, because all of the things that are listed are gonna have to be done anyway.
Sooner or later.
Right, it's just with doing, minutes for a 4-hour meeting instead of doing minutes twice for a 2-hour meeting. It's just, when are you gonna do it? You could do, you could sit for 4 hours and type out a monthly meeting, or you could sit twice a month and type out a 2-hour meeting. Yeah, I'm happy to try it.
I'm not gonna argue with them about how much time they think it's gonna save them, because we're not doing it. I mean, if they're proposing it, they obviously think it's going to save them time. It's not us preparing, us typing,
Right.
so I don't even know that that's, necessarily for us to say. But the whole getting information and then not, voting, I don't think they're gonna bring something to us in 45 minutes and then expect us to vote. So I think we're more on the topic of, will it be monthly? But I kind of think we already do that. There are not that many things I feel that we talk about and then we are voting the next meeting. There are some. But I think things are gradually brought to us as we go, sometimes more than one time over more than 1 month period. So I do think it's okay. And I think it's actually what we usually do. I don't see that as being an issue at all. I think if anything is the biggest, I'm more worried about time. I think that's the more thing to focus on. I don't think that we should be telling them how much time we think it takes them to prepare, or I don't
No,
think
I'm
they
not
would.
trying to give that impression. I'm looking at the tasks and saying, will those tasks not exist if we do a monthly meeting? They will still exist. That's what I'm just trying to say. I want them to have freed up time, but what I'm saying is, I don't think having it all in one night frees up that time, because it's gonna be done monthly instead of twice a month.
Let me throw something out, and I don't know exactly what the law says. But instead of you typing minutes, I know that some boards record
Ours is
meetings.
transcript on YouTube.
If that be the case, and you save the recording,
You still have to have.
you still have to type. Oh,
But no, I don't know if there's a way, Mark would probably know how to do that, or Damon. If I can cut and paste that out of there, I don't know how to do that, but do you know how to do that?
Because I know at certain points,
Transcripts.
you have a thing where people can go and look at the recording, in the minutes, you'll have something, you'll say, at this point,
Mhm.
Dr. Davis had said, or
Yeah,
whatever.
no, Mark gives me that
Yeah.
link to the recording,
Uh-huh.
but it sounds like what you guys are saying, it's actually typed underneath there, everything that someone says.
It is.
It is, I think it wouldn't read well, I think, for
Right.
minutes.
If we're close on the mics.
Yeah, I was just,
pick up
if there was some way we could
Cut and
record
paste
it and still meet the letter of the law, then that would be awesome, but if you, then never mind.
You
Bad
might
idea.
be able to, well, no, I was gonna say you might be able to use Dragon software or something to record it, but I don't think that would translate to minutes very well anyway. You just summarize, I would assume, yeah.
these guys are the AI guys. When I need something, I go to
You're the
them.
numbers person.
I'm the numbers, I say in the number department.
Okay, bad idea.
Yeah, hopefully we can come up with a solution that works. I mean, so that you guys feel like you're not, spinning your wheels trying to plan meetings and we can still do our work efficiently and.
I like
effectively.
your idea of combining the 2 agenda meetings and the other RDA meeting, because we meet individually with Kim and then we meet individually with Beth.
And if there's like work session, if there's nothing on, like, we decide together that, do we need to meet this week, this time?
Yeah.
No, because there's nothing on the agenda that there's questions about.
Mhm.
So we don't meet every month twice. We don't meet twice.
That's good.
The work sessions, normally it's some type of presentation and we do it on the phone and we just look at it. Again, I'm just going back to looking at when we adjourn our work sessions and looking at all of these, there are very few times that we get out of our meetings, our work session meetings, in the time that we're going to be asked to do it now. There are a couple,
5 that we do and 5 that we don't.
there's work sessions,
In
work
twenty
sessions.
twenty-four.
I'm looking at all cumulatively.
Oh, well, I'm talking about just 2024.
These are all when Dr. Davis has been superintendent, so that's why I was, it's
I
apples and
feel like
apples.
we're getting more efficient as we go, and I'm just looking at 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And some of those were just simple, came in and we voted on something, or we did something and that, but I just. And that's why we don't do the July one, because again, looking at the stuff in the minutes even, there's no reason to have 2 in the summertime or whatever, but and then I go back to, well, the special board meetings, when did we have those? It was when we only had 1 meeting that month.
we can try it out for 3 months. And then we might hate it, we might love it, or we might have a better idea of different ways. And I mean, I say we try it out.
We'll try it out. And after we do it for several months, then these guys
Yeah.
might come up with something that they didn't even think of because they actually saw what they were thinking was pretty good, but they can even improve it even better. So
And didn't we say we were gonna do 2 in January anyway, given the organizational meeting? Was
We
that
have to,
kind of
because
the
there's 3
decision?
meetings.
So
And
January,
and
I
there's
have to
3
have a
in
tax
the
budget
calendar.
meeting. Which will be at 5 o'clock on the 8th, then at 5:30, we have to have the organizational meeting, that both of those things have to be done by a certain date in January, which is why we picked the 8th. And then we'll move right into the regular board meeting, so it would be from 5, you guys don't have to be present for the tax budget
Right.
hearing at 5, but I have to be there, and then you guys will be here for the 5:30 organizational meeting.
And then the
we'll
work
move directly
session,
into the work session.
right, and then we'll have the board meeting another night.
Was that gonna be on
Yeah, I
the
mean-
1st or the 15th?
It's the 8th.
It's the
Or
8th,
the 8th, I'm sorry,
Yes.
but you had mentioned having
8th and the 22nd.
3.
If we
You
did
mentioned
2
having 3.
in a month, in January, it'd be the 8th and the 22nd. This particular year, there's that kind of 5th week.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what
And
I
so
was
it
just looking
works out
for.
kind of nicely so that no one had to come in on the 3rd.
Yeah,
Yeah, to
That's
do the
nice.
actual first and third.
right.
just in
Right.
case you
Yeah.
haven't
So that's another
recuperated
thing.
from the first.
It's the months that we have 5 weeks. Can you just get a confirmation for us one way or the other if we can?
I can send you guys an email about
Okay.
that. And then,
And it shows the 15th, we have a board meeting.
I think that probably
was
it's just,
the next-
it's
okay.
just following through probably for the.
It is,
calendar
that's the
invite that
normal
Kim
3rd
puts in.
week, because
Yeah.
the 1st.
Well, I saw that
Yeah.
the 8th is on there and the 15th is on.
Yeah, it's
So-
probably just like that
Carry over.
continuing loop of
Okay.
a,
Yeah.
calendar invite.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
we can ask him to.
so far we're on the first and third week,
Normally.
Wednesday of the week, and then 8 Oaks is on the second Wednesday. So it's like, I'm already pre-wired,
Oaks is second.
yeah, for the second.
Will that be a problem on the 8th then? Cause that's the second Wednesday?
That is.
It is.
If normally they're having their transition, so if it is, it's not a big deal. I've been the chair of the salary committee, and I did my tour of duty, so somebody. So I'm fine.
So if we can change the dates, then we'll. So then I guess the next question is, so when is this mega meeting gonna be every month?
We had talked about the third.
We had talked about the
Or
third week, just because we knew
third
Jim had
On the
commitments.
second?
Everyone had already been planning first and third, figuring that everyone still had the third available. Yeah. So if we did just one, we would think the third. So I can definitely find out. If it's not him, I can call one of the others to see if I can get some guidance on that. For tomorrow about us changing. And then I'll send that out to you guys and then we can bring back kind of these. Normally on our January 8th meeting, we would have those dates listed for you guys to approve during the organizational
Well,
meeting.
let's do two of them then. Let's do based off of what you find out.
Mhm.
I mean, come up with the normal dates of the two nights
First,
a month.
third, and then have another
And
one.
then another one and
So
then.
put it on the agenda as two items where, like, we would put it on and vote, it would be like two meetings a month, and then if you
These are
guys
the
have decided
dates.
that's what you want to do, then you'll vote and say, yes, that's what we want, and then we would get to the resolution that would say one, and then you would vote no on that. Right? Is that what you're
Or-
suggesting?
Well, or they're,
We just need to approve the calendar. So whatever.
It doesn't, we don't need to vote yes and no on each.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think,
We just need to talk and then.
I think
Yeah.
whatever's presented to us that
Motion on
night
the
will
one.
be, yeah, oh, yeah, I don't know.
And that's gonna be based on the feedback from our.
I think we
legal
make our
counsel.
own motions anyway, so we can just have two resolutions written up in terms of which one we say we want, I think.
Yeah.
Instead of voting yes and no on
Okay,
each, just
yeah.
have the two,
Then
and
you
then
would
once
just
we
make it-
decided as the discussion item,
Then you just change the agenda to.
we'll
whichever.
propose the resolution that we
Okay.
want.
All right. So I know what, okay.
Are you
for you.
confused as I?
I just want to make sure I have it right on. the
Clear as
agenda.
mud.
Okay,
But we'll know before the board meeting. What the
answer to that
is.
question is, yes, I'll definitely share that with you guys.
And then you're gonna also find out about committee.
Well, I don't know if you want to discuss that now. Do we want to look at the committee dates or?
Not
because
the
again, we-
committee, not the committee dates, but the compensation for committees.
Mhm.
There was,
I have checked around and everyone's, not a legal opinion, what's going on in other districts. The answer was no. That none of the other districts were paying for committee work and that the organizational meeting is not considered a separate meeting because it's not spaced out, with a separate time. So, because like our organization meeting and our board, work session, it says on the agenda immediately following. So if
Yes.
you got done at 6:15, the next meeting starts at 6:15. Versus when you separate them and there is an actual separation so that the public has an opportunity to show up at the time that you said you were going to have that meeting, then it's two separate meetings. So that was what I've gotten from other treasurers, but again, it was on my list of questions that I posed to the attorney, because that's what I'll need in an audit. If it comes down to that as a legal opinion, telling me how I can pay and that as well.
Yeah, I've been on a lot of committees. Matter of fact, Great Oaks probably within the last couple of years, probably 5 or 6. And those are non-paid time.
Yeah.
That's strictly
He was one of the ones I
Following-
asked.
volunteer.
yeah, I never heard, it was someone brought it up
Yeah.
and I just was like,
It was on the list of.
committees. Are
I'm sorry.
we still planning, like, if we do monthly, are we still planning, would we have enough time to schedule committee meetings before a
So-
monthly meeting for all of the committees?
So
4:30.
all the committee meetings had, this past year, we had coordinated on the same day of a board meeting or a board session. It wasn't always one or the other, you know what I mean? It was not always before a work session. It could be either based on what the committee was, with the exception of policy, and they've always been at 4:30. And that was to kind of help us so that we weren't here on even a different night to have a committee meeting. So we.
but I think you're asking if,
If there are 12 meetings, will all of the committees have the opportunity to meet on a board meeting night at 4:30? That's my question, like with finance
Yeah.
and building
So,
and
so
grounds.
typically like buildings and grounds have met, at least since I've been here about 4 times a year. I don't know, with Alicia and
No.
Crystal.
It's supposed to be.
Okay.
And then where's White's, right?
And then finance, I had incorporated one additional meeting
Oh,
this year
right.
because our group had wanted to meet one additional time to talk more about appropriations that we had not been doing previously. So that would be 7.
Okay.
In policy, we meet during the.
We do it.
during the
Okay,
day.
I'm just making
So
sure. I knew it
that's
was really
still, you know,
close.
plenty of time, and then there would be several months where we wouldn't even have a committee meeting.
But I feel like we can pick out like one in February, one in March.
Yes, that's kind of what I tried to
Yeah.
do on these, when I had given this to you guys, was try to not stack them all up, you know what I mean? And kind of knowing like when I need them to have.
Like I think
for
finance should be
finance.
scheduled first.
that's-
Right, because
When
there's
your
there's
things are
deadlines
due,
around that.
And then maybe
And then
Yeah.
From
then
there?
we can do
Yeah.
the buildings and grounds after that, and yeah. Okay, well, I'll send you guys an email tomorrow and let you know what I find out.
Right, thank
Just
you.
send Bill a text. If we don't come up with the money, we're gonna start invoicing him for your time with no response.
Well, this particular one was not Bill, so I don't want Bill to get the problem.
Well, we can blame him anyway.
Call Aaron.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Preschool?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to bring a discussion item to the board as we have been reviewing potentially the increase to our preschool tuition for the 25-26 school year. As you know, the cost of everything continues to increase, while our tuition has not increased. And I put together a little bit of information here, and Mrs. Burke shared this as well. You can see that our tuition in 2014, 2018 for, again, we have 2 preschool programs. We have a half-day program that's 4 days a week, and we have an all-day program that is 5 days a week. It's $4,200. Then there was an increase in 2019 to $4,500 for the all-day and $2,550 for the half-day. And then in 2022, since 2022, it has been $5,000 for all-day and $2,500 for the half-day. In our integrated classroom, which is our half-day classroom, our special education students do not pay tuition. So we educate those students without tuition. And just our expenses continue to outpace the revenue that we're collecting for our program. As we look at this, there's several different things that impact our education of our students, not only our teachers, but our aides, our school psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language. Those are all related services that we provide in the preschool classrooms for our students. Classroom supplies continue to increase in price. And then we occasionally, last year in particular, we sometimes have to place students outside the district and pay for their tuition outside at another school based on their disability and their needs. If this isn't the least restrictive environment, we can't meet those needs. We have consultants that we're required that for step up to quality that we have to pay for. We also have an itinerant person that has to go out. So if you live in Reading and you send your child to another preschool and they have a disability, we are responsible for providing them services. They have to provide them a minimum of 60 minutes a week, plus the IEPs and the paperwork that's required for that. So I'd like the board to just, again, we're not going to make any decisions tonight, but we have put a disclaimer on preschool on our website that rates for 25-26 could be subject to change, just so that people weren't thinking it's exactly that, and then they were surprised by that. What I would recommend the board think about or discuss this evening is that we keep the half-day rate the same as it is. I feel like we are competitive with that as we've looked at other preschools, which would be about $240 a month. That's what our families pay right now. But I would recommend that the board consider increasing our full day preschool from $500 a month to $550 a month. So there'll be a $50 increase, which would bring that up to $5,600 a year because there is a $100 fee that all preschool parents pay. Again, we looked at many preschools around the area, both at schools and private preschools, and we feel like it would fit very well with currently what some other preschools are charging. Some are charging $1,000 a month, but we're not recommending that. Nor do we think that would be the right thing to do for our community. We have a great preschool program. We're very proud of it, but as costs go up, we need to look at incrementally looking at raising our tuition fees. And again, it has been a few years since we've looked at that fee.
Just a quick question. Why do you say increase the all day and not the half day? If the services are going up, why are they not going up on the half day?
Well, I think as we looked at the prices of what tuitions were for half day, we felt that we were competitive with that with other half day programs. And again, it's 4 days a week, not 5 days a week.
Okay.
So we're not providing preschool for those students all 5 days. We're providing them for 4 days. And so as our conversations evolved with that, we believe that we were competitive with where we were. We felt like we were on the lower end with our full day, 5 day a week preschool, but
Okay.
it's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Is this increase, would it put us in a better position as far as like breaking even with the expenses, or is this just trying to minimize the?
No, we will still be operating at in a negative.
Okay.
That our expenses will be exceeding our revenue. But this would help bring up the tuition some to mitigate some of that, but just the amount of services that are with preschool. And if you recall, preschool at one point, we had Head Start here in Reading before we had our own preschool program. Again, that is, it wasn't cost prohibitive to do that. So I don't think that we could, if you to cover our costs, you would have to raise it a significant amount.
And we were also looking at what the actual costs are and where there could be some savings in costs by structuring things a little bit different and eliminating some of those costs by still providing a great preschool experience for the students. So by raising the tuition some, we would pull back, recover some of those funds, as well as maybe making some program, changes as far as.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of the cost is the salaries of the
Yes.
individuals.
Yes.
And they're specifically, it's like those specific salaries to those teachers, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so we have
So
like
it's
the
part of
teacher,
our cost.
we have the teacher salaries, we have the aides, and then as Damon mentioned, we have the related services like PTOT, speech.
We don't get reimbursement from the state for preschool, do we, for those?
We get the only for special education students. So, for example, if you have a preschool student that is, a category 5 in their disability code, then we get a set number of dollars for that particular student. So we do get money from the state, but then the typical learners, we don't get anything for.
It's a tough, it's difficult too from the lens of Mr. Edwards and I, because not just the dollars and cents that we're looking at, but we want more kids to be involved in preschool. Right now, we're only slated, at least I think we're only slated with 9 of 9 current preschoolers going to kindergarten next year here at Reading. So when students, I looked at last year's kindergarten class. Of 100 students, only 54 had preschool of some kind. So often when students are starting in kindergarten, it takes a year or two to get them where they should have been coming into kindergarten. So we really need parents to, whether that's Head Start, whether that's other programs, that students need to be in preschool. Preschool is no longer just play, as it was when I was in preschool. It is learning about letters and sounds and looking at books and colors, and it's really an enriching environment, and there's a curriculum to it. But that is something where we need more and more students coming in to kindergarten that have had preschool experience.
It's always been, I feel like it's always been an issue trying to balance that. It's always been more of an investment
It
than
is.
anything, because we're trying to prepare them for their educational career. Even if it, puts us in a financial deficit to some degree. But it's a worthwhile investment.
Well, that's the thing. A few years ago, when we first raised the tuition, we were only making we were basically eating, I think, like 50% of it for a long time. I mean, really, we've inched all of these times that we've raised it here, which is my experience on the board. We've inched closer and closer to not being in a deficit, but the investment's the key word there. We've always kind of treated it more as that. Obviously, we want to offset cost, but I mean, I would think if we had more room and everything else, we'd probably want another class. So we always have it on a wait list. It's just not been feasible.
And that's how the conversation was around raising the tuition, because we were afraid we wouldn't get anybody to sign up.
Preschool.
We still had a wait list.
Because we've
Coming
increased,
in
yeah, we were.
southbound behavior, more focused on the task instead of.
And by the way, that puts a lot of, belabors all of our resources and our teachers too, the kids that haven't gone. I mean, I know people who put their kids in kindergarten for 2 years instead for it to be for free. And that's a lot harder on the classroom teachers. I know they're needing more aid help. I know, it's not ideal. I mean, and again, that doesn't mean we don't change this rate, but it's just, we want to push the preschool.
Absolutely. Preschool registration is currently open right now, and I think it closes January 10th. So yeah, we watch those numbers closely, but and again, those students who come to Reading Preschool who are going to go to Reading it's aligned to our curriculum, it's aligned to our early literacy, and the training that in reading and literacy that our preschool teachers had is alignment with our kindergarten. So they're not set up for a great path to be successful. It was surprising to me when I looked at 66 or 46% of our current kindergartners didn't have preschool.
Crazy.
So that is just something that for the board to consider and to think about as we look at the cost of business and how that continues to increase. I am very proud of, as Mrs. Burke said, very proud of our preschool program. I think they do a phenomenal job and add real value for our students.
What did you say? What were the numbers of the preschool children that do not stay in Reading schools in kindergarten?
Well, he said 9
9.
came in or are going next year.
Right now, because preschool, it's difficult because
They're
you
not
can have
old enough.
multiple years.
That's the biggest problem.
You could be a 3-year-old in preschool, 3, 4, 5. So right now, we have currently 9 students of our 40 that are slated to go to kindergarten.
And only
Thank you.
20 go to full day preschool. Just if that gives, an
Okay.
idea, I guess, of whatever that would give an idea of, but.
So we have an integrated class, a half-day integrated class that it's half students with disabilities and half typical learners. And then in the afternoon, it is only students with disabilities in that afternoon half-day section. And then in our all-day section are just preschool students, so.
I was writing down all these numbers and I missed that one. That's why, sorry. Thank you. When do you need for us to make a decision on this?
I think we'd have to make a decision in January, absolutely in
I
January.
think so, for people who want to plan to attend, $50 difference may impact whether someone would come, and so I think it would only be fair to them to let them know.
The timeline on that is January, the lottery ends, and February we notify. So
Okay.
So
Then
they
that
would
way,
know.
notification,
Yeah.
we can say this is your tuition.
Yes.
So I
Right.
think it would work fine in January and then
Okay.
when we notify them, we let them know what, and they have to make that payment. Or at least I think
$100.
$100 deposit to reserve their spot.
I think it's $60. It's $4.90 a month.
It's $4.90 for 10 payments with $100
Correct.
deposit.
Yeah.
So,
For 5,000.
so it comes
So
out to five.
$60, well, yeah, $50 extra.
Yeah, and it's a 10-month
Mhm.
preschool payments for 10 months.
So if the application process closes on January the 10th
Mhm.
and we vote on it the 8th,
We're fine. They're not notified until February technically.
right, but I mean, at least if they get on the website, there would be something on there. Even though you put on there it could change, but
Yes.
okay.
Okay, moving on to treasurer's recommendations. Resolution 314-24, approve the minutes for November 20th, 2024, regular session and December 4th, 2024, work session. And we're waiving the reading of the minutes for these minutes and meetings.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Padu, second by Mrs. Tomlin, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 315-24, approve financial reports, bank reconciliations, investments for November of 2024.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Tomlin, second by Mrs. Menner, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Yes. Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 316-24, approve the following donations.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Patu, second by Mrs. Menner. And again, just want to thank everyone for their generosity here. We have American Income Life Insurance Company for Principals Fund. Is that for prizes?
Yeah.
Okay.
That actually was, they donated $1 for a survey that parents filled out for students.
Oh, nice.
So, that's what
Nice.
that was about.
Thanks. And then Miss Morgan again for athletic projects totaling $6,700. Bill Stidham, who's always very generous with the boys basketball donation, Air Plus for wrestling, the Eagles for wrestling and Quality Sports for the SRF. So again, thank all those people, individuals and companies and organizations for the generosity. Roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 317-24, approve the following invoices under the announced certificate, ORC 5705.41D.
Make the motion.
Second. Mrs. Menner, second by Mrs. Tallman, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 318-24, approve the following new funds, 200-9646 for the Blue Devil Bakery.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Purdue, second by Mrs. Menner, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Yes. Mrs. Warner?
Yes. New business, resolution 319-24, recommend the approval to rescind the following non-staff supplementals for the 2024-2025 school year.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Purdue, second by Mrs. Menner, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 320-24, recommend the approval of the following staff supplementals for the 2024-2025 school year.
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Menner, second by Mr. Purdue, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Yes. Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 321-24, recommend the approval of the following non-staff supplementals for the 2024-2025 school year.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Purdue, second by Mrs. Menner, roll call please.
Mrs. Bemis?
Yes.
Mrs. Menner?
Yes.
Mr. Purdue?
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman? Yes. Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Resolution 322-24, recommend the approval of the following volunteer for 2024-2025.
That's a question on this first. He's on the last, should he be on both?
Who is that?
Eddie.
Eddie Works.
So,
It's a different,
Mr. Wards and Mr. Caudill was sharing the boys' basketball 50-50. And then Mr. Wards could not fulfill the 50-50 percentage, so we rescinded those contracts and then we reapproved them on 3/21. To be 75-25.
25.
But then now,
And then now Mr. Wards is going to be a volunteer for the remainder of the season.
okay,
so he's
I
done
guess I
a
just
quarter
thought
and then
25.
it's 20, yeah.
Yeah, so
So he doesn't get paid as a volunteer, so
Okay.
he's fulfilling the 25% of the time.
okay, I just thought maybe
And
it was doing it or something.
Yeah,
Season
that's,
3 in a row.
yeah, well, they rescinded the 50% because he wasn't able to do that, so he did the 25% and the rest he's gonna volunteer.
Okay, gotcha.
If you called for a person, I mean, a motion the second, I missed it. Can
I
you-
did not.
Okay.
We had discussion first.
Okay.
You did.
Yeah, okay.
It was the music.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Purdue, second by Mrs. Mentor. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bettis,
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor.
Yes.
Mr. Purdue.
Yes,
Mrs. Tallman.
Yes.
Mrs. Warner.
Yes. Resolution 323-24, recommend the approval of the following FMLA leave of absence.
I'll second.
Motion, Mrs. Tomlin, second by Mrs. Mentor. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bettis,
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor.
Yes.
Mr. Purdue.
yes,
Mrs. Tallman.
Yes.
Mrs. Warner.
Yes. Resolution 324-24, recommend the approval of overnight wrestling tournament from December 27th, 2024 through December 28th, 2024 at Vandalia Butler High School.
I'll make the motion.
Motion, Mrs. Mentor, second by Mrs. Tomlin. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bettis,
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor.
Yes.
Mr. Purdue.
yes.
Mrs. Tallman. Mrs. Warner.
Yes. And anything else before we go to the order? I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Mentor, second by Mr. Purdue. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I have 7:06 PM. Can we? Each one of our board. Background music.
I tried to get the choir to surprise you and they couldn't get enough kids together. But, I'm saying they're gonna sing.
There's the other night, didn't we?
All right, I've got to get to my daughter's birthday, so.